Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mailin' It, the official podcast of the United States Postal Service. I'm your co-host, Yasmine DeJoy.
And I'm Dale Parsant. In this episode, we're going to talk about the first year of implementing the Delivering for America plan.
Last year, the Postal Service published its 10-year transformation called Delivering for America. This comprehensive plan touches every part of the Postal Service. Its big goals are to help the organization recover from a long-term financial and service performance crisis. The plan also puts the Postal Service on a path to be the nation's best-in-class, high-performing delivery organization.
It's very exciting to be able to take stock of the first year since the publication of the plan. And it's even more exciting to be able to do so with the return of a special guest, our Postmaster General, DeJoy. Louis, welcome to Mailin' It.
Hello, Dale. Hello, Yasmine.
Welcome back. So we wanted to get started with this one-year retrospective about Delivering for America by looking back to a year ago as the plan was being developed. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like then and why the plan was developed?
Well, sure. I mean, when I got here, there was no question, at least in my mind, that the organization was in crisis. We have had, 10 years of a historically diminishing market, eroding infrastructure, employee turnover, and substantial financial losses. And that was not frozen. There was a lot of momentum behind the continuation of that condition. The trajectory was continued to be bad. The fact that we did not have a plan in this particular condition was really alarming to me. And we set out to put one together. And what the DFA, in fact, does is help us become self-sustaining. It identifies with a little more detail what we consider universal service to be, delivering to 161 million addresses 6 days a week, covering our cost. And in the long run, we think we're going to serve the people better. And we serve the people better by having a United States Postal Service that has a future, a viable future. And that's what we're out to accomplish with the plan. And that's why we put it together.
So for those of us within the building, we're very well aware of the state of the Postal Service. But for the rest of the American people, why do we think people did not believe that we were in such a state of crisis?
It was kind of alarming to me when I got here. But at the end of the day, we did not do an effective job of articulating what was going on within the organization. So on the on the surface, it seemed fine to many people on the outside. But the fact is, there was just a really, really big erosion of the effectiveness of the organization for the United States people, and really the ability of its employees to actually conduct the mission.
So I'm glad you bring up employees, and I want to stick on this topic of communication. You've spent some time since you've joined us here at the Postal Service, traveling the country and speaking with employees from coast to coast. What response have you received from them regarding the implementation of DFA once you get a chance to actually speak to them and explain to them what we're doing?
First of all, it's one of the more fun parts of the job, running around the nation. And it's one of the most rewarding parts to see the people and their roles and what we actually do in different parts of the country and so forth. And, first off, our employees have tremendous pride in the organization, in their work, and tremendous commitment, to the organization in the work. So when I get out there, first of all, there's a tremendous amount of interest, and they're extremely, extremely attentive. And the fact of the matter is, and you may have heard me speak, I don't really sugarcoat anything. Right, I just lay it out there, where we are, how we got here, and I have a calls to action on them, calls to action on our management team, and calls to action on myself. Right, I put this plan out there. I believe in it. I got to move it forward, and so forth. And they're very, very, very appreciative, both for the clarity in terms of what I'm saying, and the fact that they see me as fighting for the organization. But the fact of the matter is, we have to make some very uncomfortable, have made, and will continue to have to make some very uncomfortable changes. And all of our employees need to know that as we're making them, that there's a purpose for making them, there's a strategy behind them, And there is a rainbow there. At the end, I believe we will be a very viable and functional and very much needed and used organization for the American people.
It may surprise some of our listeners that we don't receive taxpayer dollars to cover our operating expenses, and we have to cover all these costs ourselves from the sale of our products and services like postage stamps. So I know in Delivering for America, we have a pretty big goal of eliminating, I think, around $160 billion in projected losses over the next 10 years. Are we on track to meet that target and to break even?
Yes, it is a $160 billion deficit that we projected to do, and I believe we're on track. In 2024, we should be at a break even. We have a lot of inflation that was not, expected. As at least in the short term right now. But once you get to break even, the idea is you need to stay at break even. And we will not be able to do that unless we make continue to make some big structural changes. We need all of the plan to be implemented. And that's what I'm, focused on right now. Now, we have had some good successes. We've had legislative and regulatory changes. We got our pricing relief, which is about $45 billion over the next 10 years. Then just recently, we got the legislation passed in the House and Senate, and the president signed it. And that's big. That's another $50 billion. So we're about $90 to $100 billion along the way, and the rest is the self-help. I've asked the organization to find $35 billion. All right, over the next 10 years. That's 5%. I used to tell my clients you can fall out of bed and find 5%. And that's what I'm telling everybody here. But we got to go get it. We have two types we have the transactional processing savings that we can make, but we have big structural changes that we need to make to really accomplish this cost goal. We've gotten a lot done, but what we've gotten done has taken slivers of the organization to focus on. This is an all-of-agency initiative right now, but I'm fairly confident that we're going to do it.
So what has been the impact of these changes that you've seen so far? Has our service improved?
Well, certainly we had a better peak, dramatically better peak, and it's deeper than what you might see in terms of there's two types of performance that I look at with service. Number one is are we making our targets, right? Our service targets. Number two is when we don't make our service targets, how long a period until we recover? Well, this year, because of the added capacity that we had, and we beefed up in terms of labor, we were at like 96% on time. If you take the next morning, and we ran 6 to 9, in the morning, we ran special process in the morning. 96% of the stuff got delivered by the next day, which is a tremendous accomplishment by the team. So that was a good success.
This past peak was absolutely impressive from a service performance perspective. But it was also impressive because we had a special ask from the Biden administration in the form of COVID-19 test kits. Can you talk to us a little bit about that specific assignment and how we went about fulfilling that mission?
Yeah. Well, it was an exciting project, and to start off, this was as great a collaboration effort, between agencies, the White House, HHS, and Department of Defense, as you would see, and it shows. It actually shows the strength of government when it's on a tight time frame, right? And it just has a good focus on execution, right? It brought the best out of everybody, and to that extent, when it came to execution, we played a leadership role in it. We had the infrastructure. And so therefore we had a design role on how this was going to get distributed to the people, where the inventory was going to go, where it was going to be fulfilled, the execution of the order processing, the product configuration, the physical distribution and delivery. And we're very, very proud. I'm very proud of the team and the accomplishments there. And I think so was the White House and HHS. It was a good working relationship. We were doing 3 million orders a day. One day we shipped almost 5 million orders, and we were delivering 2.5 to 3 million orders a day. Big operation, and we put it together in 3 weeks. And that's the power of the United States Postal Service, right? And we have a big role, and hopefully I could convince the rest of the agencies. It's on my thing to do to have a long-term play. We put it together in a couple of weeks, and we got better at it, and now we could put it together in like a week.
The key thing for me, Louis, is that this is, and I want our listeners to understand this. This is new. This is not just simply delivery as we've become accustomed to seeing out in the country. This is brand new operations for the Postal Service, and we were able to do so effectively in such a short turnaround.
Yeah, it was really something else, and very proud of the proud of the team, and that makes me so excited about our future.
So I placed my order for my COVID test kits through the Postal Service website, as you were mentioning. And when I received them, I noticed on the address sticker, it said USPS Connect. Can you talk to us a little bit about how this program might link up with the USPS Connect program?
So one of the reasons we were able to, respond so quickly, because in theory, we were already framing out a process of having an order system that would be able to place inventory close to the regions that we want to serve. That's how inventory is being moved right now. Now, USPS Connect Regional is about entering product at destinating facilities, and so you could take a plant like in Texas. We rolled out the pilot. 35 million people in Texas. We have 11 plants. Right? If you enter product in any of those 11 plants, right, you can hit 31 of the 35 million people the next day. And when I say enter packages into that by a certain cutoff time, well, that's the whole theory about how we're going to reinvent our market, our infrastructure, and how our service and our rating and everything should be available in the package industry. We used a similar model for the COVID test kits. We would like to invite people to do the same with us, to reach large parts of regional markets with their goods, right? You can take orders late into the evening, run them over to our plant, boom, it gets delivered. Or we'll pick them up and it gets delivered within that region.
We had a recent podcast episode where we discussed some of these partnerships with other agencies, like with the FBI, and we really came away knowing that those agencies value their partnerships with the Postal Service. So it's great that we're potentially moving into another avenue that we can continue to build those relationships.
So, and this is going to be, incumbent on us to try and sell it, because agencies while this was a good emergent thing that had to happen quick. Agencies all have their own long-term goals and their own types of competencies that they try to build. No one is going to be able to deliver to the American household better than us. No one has the infrastructure across the nation that can support storage of needed commodities and so forth, and get it to the American people better than us. And you know what? We're going to get better at it as time goes on. So I invite, if any of the agencies are listening out there, I invite you to come visit with us and see how we can fit into your structure.
So you mentioned a lot of people being involved in these efforts, both for the COVID test kit and really just in general in supporting our operations. I know one of the challenges with today's workforce because of the pandemic and other factors is basically the availability of people to work and then retaining those people. So as we all know, the Postal Service is a very labor-intensive business. Why do you think people want to work here, and why do you think that they stay?
Well, it's very exciting work. It's, it has, public service aspect of it and so forth. But we're not, we've had significant turnover within the ranks in terms of new entrants. Most people come in through the Postal Service. When you look at the long timers, they came in starting as mail carriers or in plants, and the organization in the past, because it had it was vibrant, was able to get these people to stay and progress through the ranks. I mean that between 40-45% turnover in our pre-career a workforce for a lot of different reasons, and then exacerbated by the pandemic. When I came in, this was fairly problematic and not only difficult for us to achieve our service, it was also a little bit of a black mark on the organization, as I felt. In the short term, we've tried to address it. We significantly stabilized the workforce by converting more people. We converted 63,000 people. It takes the turnover rate down from 40% to about 3 or 4 or 5. Right, and we hired seasonal people. But there are things we need to do on our side. We kind of reduced the workload. We managed the overtime. We tried. We're not there yet, but we're trying to be more inviting. To people to join. We advertised a lot, as you noticed, in terms of trying to get people to come to be with us for a long career. So these were things we did in the short term. In the long term, we first of all we have to have a promise of career, and we're starting to work on it. You come in the back door through the dock, and you can make it to my role, just like Megan Brennan did. That's an important message for an organization, to send. We need to. And then we need to go through and we need to improve our physical environment. And when we do that, right, we reduce stress. We reduce stress on everybody, the people, the management, the supervisors. And we really, in an operational services entity, supervisory talent is the most important thing for execution, right? And we're moving out long term to try and improve on that, both in terms of training and teaching and the workload that they have. There are areas and things that we don't have as great a reputation with our employees as we should. And whether it's true or not, I was thought as being evil when I got here. And my actions hopefully convinced at least the two of you that I'm not over the course of the year. And whether we believe that's true or not, we need to address it. Right? We need to lead people into the organization, make them believe in the organization and the mission. Now, we will also have to have expectations of every employee as to what they're supposed to be doing, and we will. But that comes with having standard processes. It makes it easy on everybody to manage. And, these are long-term initiatives that we have.
We talked a lot about the changes that you've implemented in the last year. Do you have any lessons learned from this implementation, or is there anything that you would have done differently looking back now?
Well, Yasmine, there's a lot of reasons. I did a lot of things at the time I did them, right? And, there was a strategy here to create attention, right, and get and gain momentum from the organization. And, so even things like run the trucks on time, right, which should have been simple, had a consequence that I effectively used and we used to force other changes and point things out, right? And we got got attention. And I can't go back and really evaluate all of that stuff. What I will tell you is I'm very operationally oriented. I see an operational fix here for the organization. I'm not like a policy wonk, right? I see an operational fix. And most of the objectives, especially now, if they're getting a couple of things behind us, are very operational about the organization and very much know what we have to do. I will say, now that kind of the ball's in our court, right? We have lots of stakeholders with lots of advice, some with depth in terms of their understanding of what we do, most without depth. But in either case, I need to lend more of an ear to that as we move forward, and I will, and I have. And I think that is something that, we could debate whether I should have done it earlier or not. It might have gotten in the way. I'm a human being, right? With a big task.
Absolutely.
and need to be very committed to what it is that I want to do, because, again, I told you what I'm trying to do. It's pretty simple. Deliver to 161 million addresses, cover our cost, right? That's it.
You make it sound so easy.
And I get a lot of advice that has nothing to do with that on what it is I should do. So, but expect a little more a little more attention. Doesn't mean it's different. It doesn't mean I need to take the advice, and I won't if it's not the right thing to do. But I plan on listening, a little more.
You've been in the role of Postmaster General for nearly 2 years now, and you came out of a very successful private sector business into a high-profile public institution. What has that transition been like for you?
So, first of all, I'm very optimistic. When you see kind of what we're pulling off here at the Postal Service and change, by being very, having very much focus on getting certain things right and keeping to our mission. You look at the test kit program, the collaboration on a test kit. I think that kind of limiting, segmenting specific things and good leadership in government can really accomplish a lot. Can really accomplish a lot. So I'm optimistic, about that side of it. We are making big strides at the Postal Service because we try not to operate as a policy shop. We try and not operate as a political thing. We just very much fix the Postal Service, deliver the mail, cover the cost. But from my standpoint, I am unbelievably fulfilled. I run to the office in the morning. It's hard to get out at night. I love the people. I love the mission. And I could not imagine not doing this right now because there's things I want to get done. And I would do it all over again.
So the past year has been pretty aggressive. I think we can all agree on that in terms of implementing the Delivering for America plan. We've seen a lot of encouraging progress, though. What does the coming year look like for the Postal Service?
The big thing is to continue to transactionally try and get better in our service. Transactionally means within the same network and operation we have, make the necessary improvements that we can't, undo those stupid things that we're doing and kind of, get it right. Try and run, just run more effectively with what it is that we have. It's not the long-term fix, but it gets improved, improved service. And the same thing on the cost, right? Let's take out, we probably run 10,000 empty trips to the same place, every day. Transactionally get that, make that a cleanup. So very much pushing the team to, learn how to manage tighter and better on the transactions that we have. But the big thing that I hope to get moving is how do we reposition ourselves structurally, to serve the nation for the next 100 years. And it's not what we have. Right, and we're going to see a lot of effort in that. We've done things in terms of we should have another good holiday season. It shouldn't be as heavy lift, but we're still behind. I'm still putting in another 50 conveyor systems, squeezing them into plants, because we just don't have the ability to clear all the packages coming through the plant. So it's more of the second floor thing, third floor, but at least we'll get them, through. It's not cost effective. It's kind of tough on the people, but it buys us time, and that's what these transactional things, do in terms of time. I set up a new infrastructure for election mail. In the organization, we used to get it up for elections and then take it down, right? And now we have a structure in marketing with a new leader that is going to be full-time, work with all the election agencies around, because elections are, it's not a big part of our business, but it's a big part of our discussion. And we need to get that, that straightened out. We're going to continue to invest in our people and technology and so forth to align, both for the new operations we need to do, long term, and to reconnect with our customers, in terms of how they interact with us. And then also putting a lot of resources on, just basic transportation management systems and all our old systems, HR systems. I think we're putting a new HR system in. We're putting in a new transportation management system in, and these types of things to get us covered. I'm going to spend $40 billion over the next 10 years. And we actually have a new capital way we go about allocating capital that I own. I have a leadership team that sits on a committee with me and the whole organization has put their capital requirements in for the next 10 years. And we go through that in a pretty detailed manner and say, this is good, this is not good, and so forth. So you're going to see, that. It's an exciting part of our history right now. And we're gaining momentum. And what I'm most concerned about as I make these decisions is, am I clear on everything, the impact? Sometimes I feel like I'm in an antique store here. And it says, don't touch, breakable, right? So you got to do something, and boom, you don't know what you're impacting. So I'm very mindful of that, but very excited.
Louis, it's inspiring to talk about what we've all been able to accomplish over the last year, but also about the years to come. I think we're going to look back at DFA and the implementation of DFA as a really exciting part of Postal Service history. Just want to thank you for coming on and joining Yasmine and I and doing the podcast again.
Yeah, well, it's fun. It's fun to see both of you grow in this role. I've been listening to some of the, actually all of the podcasts, and you could tell you're enjoying it and you're getting better at it, and you're actually coaching me a little bit on before we got started today. It's great, but now I think you need to get back to your regular jobs. And start pushing out because you're an important part of the organization, being in strategic planning, and so go back to planning, okay? Thank you.
You got it, sir. All right, everyone. Let's switch gears for Did You Know? Yasmine, do you mind if I go first?
Not at all.
Great. Yasmine, did you know that the Postal Service gave birth to the commercial aviation industry?
Are you talking about airmail?
Not just airmail. I'm talking about air travel as we know it today. When U.S. airmail service officially began in 1918, there were no commercial airplanes, airlines, or airports. To kickstart the non-existent industry, the Post Office Department, as the Postal Service was known at the time, built airfields and supplied its own pilots, planes, and mechanics. The department also put a lot of work into fine-tuning flight instruments and navigational aids on the ground.
It's amazing to think that Postal Service workers were among the first professional pilots.
For years, the Post Office Department tested planes for mail transportation. Some of these involved pilots literally dropping mail bags from the sky to postal employees on the ground. I guess those proved a success because in 1917, Congress appropriated $100,000 to establish an experimental airmail service. As you can imagine, flying was pretty dangerous in those early days. Nearly 36 pilots died between 1918 and 1927 due to unpredictable weather, unreliable equipment, or just inexperience.
That's terrible.
Fortunately, over time, and through a lot of trial and error, the U.S. Airmail Service developed more reliable navigation aids and safety features. They demonstrated that flights could be made safely in different weather conditions and, later on, even at night. By the end of 1920, airmail routes had been established from New York to San Francisco.
How did it become an industry?
Well, once the Post Office Department had proven commercial flight was viable, it contracted out airmail service to private carriers. Another thing I found really interesting was that Charles Lindbergh was a U.S. airmail pilot for a short time.
The Charles Lindbergh? The first person to fly non-stop across the Atlantic on his own?
The very same. Before he became famous, he worked a route that carried mail between Chicago and St. Louis. He did that for about a year before making his record-breaking 1927 transatlantic flight in an aircraft named the Spirit of St. Louis.
That was a good one, Dale. Now it's my turn. In keeping with the theme of cutting-edge Postal Service transportation, I want to take you back a few decades earlier than the birth of airmail. Did you know the Postal Service first tested electric vehicles in 1899?
Wait, they had electric cars back then?
They did. The first known test of an electric vehicle for mail collection was in Buffalo, New York, on July 2nd, 1899. Buffalo's superintendent of city delivery collected mail from 40 boxes in an electric automobile in less than half the time it took with the horse-drawn wagon.
I'm still having a hard time picturing an electric vehicle from more than 100 years.
There were more. In December 1899, a post office in Cleveland, Ohio, tested an electric automobile during a snowstorm. The 22-mile route was completed in 2 hours and 26 minutes. With a horse and wagon, it usually took 6 hours.
Think the car had snow tires?
I don't know if they'd been invented yet. At the time, gas and steam-powered vehicles were also tried. All of them were a lot more efficient and a lot more expensive than horse-drawn wagons. Ultimately, gas-powered vehicles prevailed in the larger marketplace, so that's the direction the Postal Service went. One of the complaints about electric vehicles was that they took too long to charge, so they weren't as readily available as their gas-powered counterparts. Throughout the 20th century and into the present time, the Postal Service has experimented many times with electric vehicles. Unfortunately, it's taken until only recently for the technology to become mainstream. We'll have to see what the future holds.
Well, you had electric vehicles, I had airplanes. I think it's safe to say that for this Did You Know, I think it's a tie.
I agree.
On that note, that's it for this episode of Did You Know?
Dale, what did you think about our conversation with Postmaster General DeJoy?
You know, something that stood out to me is just how committed our leadership team is to having boots on the ground across the country to engage with our employees. With how aggressive our goals have been and how hectic this last year has been, it's a pretty impressive feat.
I agree. I also enjoyed hearing more about the COVID test kit partnership. I thought it was an incredibly innovative idea once I heard about it, and the process to order and receive the kits was so easy. I'm really excited to see what future partnerships might look like. Well, that wraps up this episode of Mailin' It. Don't forget to check our website for updates. You can also follow us on Instagram at US Postal Service, Twitter at USPS, and on Facebook. Subscribe to Mailin' It wherever you get your podcasts to make sure you don't miss the next episode.